There are 168 hours in a week. We go to church for 1 hour. What about the other 167?
Cue this podcast. We're here to bring the church to you the rest of the week. I'm David Vogel, the Director of Communication here at Central Community Church.
I'm Corey Broddle, the Director of Community. We've been to the 1 hour in church. Now welcome to the other 167.
Well, today on 167, we have Miranda Jones, who works with us here at the church. Her title, official title, is the Director of Serve Central. So
that's not the only title. I
No,
think
there
you
are
have
many.
a lot more. You do a lot of roles here.
But that's the official title.
Official
title. So thanks for coming, Miranda.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So Miranda, let's talk about a little bit about your past, because we're going to talk about Serve Central and volunteering. And you come from a small town where everybody jumps in, but then you also were in the industry of hospitality. Before you worked at Central, you were in the hotel business.
Yes.
So just talk about your past and how you can kind of relate that to your job that you have now.
Sure. So yes, I did grow up in a really small town, Palmer, 110 people. So super huge, lots of people going on there. But pretty much any time we had an event, whether it was at church or in the community, people just kind of jumped in, did whatever they needed to. I remember still my dad leading a vacation Bible school at the church, and it still just kind of cracks me up that my dad ran vacation Bible school, but people just jumped in. You know, he owned a lumberyard and construction crew and did that. So anyway, it was just kind of what we did. I was very used to being part of a team, being a volunteer at school, at church, in the community. And then when I came here, or even just when I moved to Nashville and Bowling Green and moved around, I just kind of always faded into the background a little bit, especially here at Central. It's such a big church. I kind of just assumed they had it figured out. I didn't really think that there was a need for me. I'm sure that they talked about needing volunteers. Maybe I just missed it. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. But yeah, I just really assumed that they were good. And at the time, I did have a job as an assistant general manager at a hotel. Kept me pretty busy. I kind of probably used that as an excuse a bit. But looking back now, it really has helped. I oversee all volunteers really, but definitely the welcome team. Yeah. And so just having that background, welcoming guests into the hotel, making sure they had a good experience, really making people feel like they were somewhere where we were happy to have them. All of that just kind of transferred well into this role, and something we emphasize a lot with all of our greeters, ushers, and makes a big difference. So.
And I think we've all been new to a church. Yeah.
Yes.
And we've had that walking in with like the deer in the headlights, not knowing where to go, and having that first person smile and greet us makes a difference.
When my wife and I were looking for a church, we moved to Wichita. We visited several before we came to Central. And the one that we visited, it might have been the week before we came to Central. We walked in. They were still finishing up the first service, so it wasn't real busy out in the foyer area, but we walked in and there was nobody. There was one guy standing kind of in the back, and he didn't acknowledge us for like 2 minutes, and we had no idea where we were going. By contrast, I don't know that you can get to your seat in the sanctuary at Central without talking to at least two, if not three people. And it was night and day difference. And that was probably my first takeaway here was, wow, the greeters and the ushers, they're genuinely happy to see you, and they're intentional about catching you on your way in.
Yeah. Good. And that made a big difference for me. When I lived in Bowling Green, I did find a church I really liked. But one of the busiest days working at a hotel is a Sunday. All your weekend guests are checking out. So again, it was just easy for me to say, I have to be at work this day, not to really make, making it to church early before I went into work a priority at first. But eventually, after a few weeks of just going and sitting in the pew, a couple my age introduced themselves to me. And it just kind of added that little bit of accountability that I knew on Sunday I would see those people. And just to have some friends, because I didn't know anybody in that town. So that was kind of nice. And just a reminder of why it's so important to have those people, especially in the section, sitting with you, saying hello, just kind of reminds me why we do what we do. So.
And you talked about hiding in the back row or trying not to make yourself known. That's not biblical. That is not in Scripture. And I know you talk about what is in Scripture, and that we all need to come together as the body.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to kind of trick yourself into thinking you're not needed, especially if you don't think, I'm not a good teacher. I don't like to talk in front of people. Maybe you're even questioning how well you know the Scripture, and maybe you just think like, oh, I can't use the skills that I have. But a lot of times in Scripture, I think there's 3 different places where it lists out the spiritual gifts. And there's so many different things. There's the gift of course, teaching, prophecy, administration, hospitality. There's a lot that are listed in there. It's not just kind of those things you might see from the stage of, Pastor Bob preaching. So, and it takes everybody. If somebody's really good at one gift but can't organize a group of volunteers, the events aren't going to happen where we're going to touch lives, or, it just takes everyone. So.
And I know it even like some people will say, well, God can't use me, not just because of their gifts, but because of their brokenness too. And I just have a quick story. We have servers online, just like if you were to come into the building in person, you're greeted. We have that also for our online services. We have those greeters, and we have a new one that God is just using in mighty ways, because she's just sharing her past. And we've had other people come forward in their brokenness and need Jesus just as much, but just her having that, just being able to share her past. And I think that's important for us to know too, as volunteers, as God can use every little bit about us.
Being able to relate to someone too. You know, if someone's been through the same thing as you, you might respond a little better than someone that you perceive as being perfect, because none of us are perfect. So, definitely being able to use your past and your pain and the things you've experienced in your life, that's huge. So one story I wanted to share kind of while we're on stories, over COVID, it was really hard. I had a couple people reach out saying, how can we help? How can we serve? What are the things that we can be doing? And I just thought that was awesome, first of all, that people wanted to be able to help others during that time. But during all of that, I kind of started my conversations with someone who was pretty new to Central. We talked on the phone. Not a whole lot happened. And especially because the area she wanted to serve in was middle school, high school age. And, we don't have a pastor there right now. So just getting her plugged in took some time. But anyway, after all of that, I just thought the timing was so cool. It may have been, the second week that she came on a Wednesday night to serve. And we were asking the CSM team if they had some girls who wanted to help with the princess movie party. And Heather's like, I have a princess business, basically. She dresses up as princesses and goes around. And I actually talked to her mother-in-law at church on Sunday. And I heard the story of how that started, and it's just so cool. But I thought the timing of that was so neat, how she just got started, and right away it was like she had this thing that we could use, and it's going to be so fun to see her.
That will be. I know my daughter's excited for it.
Oh, yes, very excited. But you've even seen where people, like gifts that you wouldn't even think to be used at a church. Like we had that lady who we needed something sewn.
Yeah, she was at a Core Central class, and, we were doing the spiritual gifts test, and I'm pretty sure she told me, she was like, I just really don't think I'm going to be much help. I'm not, I can't stand for long periods of time. She just kind of went on about why she didn't really think there would be much that she could do, but she did mention she loved to sew. And we have some welcome flags along the road, and wind had torn holes in the tops of a few of them.
Hashtag Kansas.
Yes. Yep. And sure enough, I just reached out, Carol, can you see if you can fix these for us? And it wasn't even a week later, and they're all perfectly usable again. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I love hearing those stories just of God using people to make him known. We are know Christ and make him known, and that's what people are doing by serving.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's one of the parts of Scripture that I really liked, the Great Commission, go out and make disciples of all nations, and just how difficult that would be for one person, obviously not one person, but even for a church, for the pastor to be responsible for all of that.
Right.
There's just no way, especially when you look at a church our size, even a smaller church, you can't just look at the pastor and expect that they're going to have all of these things covered. Even our staff that runs our care team, we still need people to help deliver those meals or to help do the dishes from the meals that get prepared.
Right.
I mean, there's so many parts of what we do, and it just wouldn't be possible if people weren't willing to step in and use the gifts and the talents that they have to accomplish that. So,
and sometimes it's even if it's not a talent, doing dishes necessarily isn't a talent, but it's serving. And I mean, one of the last actions of service that Jesus did on this earth was washing his disciples' feet. I mean, that doesn't take talent. That just takes compassion and a servant's heart. And I know I struggle with that because I don't really want to do dishes either.
Yep.
But it's important. It's how we all contribute.
Yep. You did talk about community too, and how when you start getting involved, you form a tight-knit team with those people that you serve with.
Definitely.
And you've seen that with your greeters, your ushers, like in the mornings on Sunday mornings. I love them, like when they get in their little huddle and they're checking in on everybody. So it'd be really good for those people who are new to Central to even get involved, even though you're like, I'm just going to sit back and see how this works out. Jump in, get involved, because you might find connection with your team that you're serving with.
So that's
Definitely.
Yeah, that's how you form relationships. If you just show up and sit in the back row, you're not, I mean, unless somebody's really seeking you out, it's hard to make friends.
Yeah.
Whereas when you serve with people week after week, all of a sudden you're sharing life with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what are ways that if they're sitting there like, okay, well, you've talked about it, now I'm getting excited about it. What are some ways that they can get involved? We do have core class, right?
Yeah, so core is a great way, especially the third week or the third session of core. We always do spiritual gifts assessments. Those are just really interesting to find out, the unique gifts that God gave you, to just really take some time to think about the way that you were created and how you can use that to serve other people. Again, that's the third session. We talk about other great stuff in core, but we
they get to hang out with you and me, right?
Yeah, and we have all kinds of free giveaways, so come to Core Central. And then the third Sunday of every month, we do volunteering, which that's been a really fun thing we've started. We started that at the first of the year. We did our first one in January, and we just take about an hour on a Sunday morning. We walk around the church, see some different behind-the-scenes areas that you might not know exist, meet a few of the volunteers in those areas.
So what you're saying is it's a behind-the-scenes tour where you meet the stars.
Exactly. That is exactly it. And then at the end, we just have a time for questions. There's cinnamon rolls, so that's a great reason to come. But if you have questions, one time we did volunteering, and at the end, one of the participants was like, "Hey, I know I want to be in kids ministry." They took her right over. She shadowed that day, and she's serving there. So I thought that was really cool. And I think we're at about 50% of the people who come on those tours find a place for them to serve. So we've definitely seen success just with people being able to really find a spot for them. So we get a lot of information.
And when's the next one? Did you say the next one?
June 20th.
June 20th.
So it's the
Sunday.
third Sunday. And for both Core Central and volunteering, they could, if people are interested, they can go to my.centralcommunity.church, hit the events tab, and the next one will be there ready to register for.
Yep.
And on the check-in card every single Sunday, they can do the QR code or the link in the comments, and they can say that they want to serve, right?
Yes.
And then you follow up with those people that click that.
Yep. I'll tell you about the next volunteering date, or if that time doesn't work for you or you don't want to wait. I'm always happy just to meet with people, just chat. It's super casual. We just see what you might be interested in. So, yeah, no pressure, but it's good.
Well, thanks for being here, Miranda. I love talking to her about volunteers because your face just lights up, and you know that I can tell like you're really passionate about it, and you love on the people that serve, and like it's a huge team that you're a part of, and I know you just care for everybody that's a part of it. So I love hearing the stories and talking with you about volunteering. I can't wait to see more people getting involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 167. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening from.
And to keep up with everything at Central Community Church, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to watch us record this podcast live, find us on YouTube.
We think the 167 hours between church services are so important, and we hope you'll share this episode with your friends. Join us next week.